Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us for episode 2. This is the Ari and Syd Show. I'm Ari.
And I'm Syd, and we're forever friends, and this is the shit that we care about.
Yeah, on any given day, we are texting and talking about things that is meaningful. Sometimes that shit is not so meaningful. And so we thought about creating a show to have an opportunity to talk more in person and then also breathe some awareness while we're doing it.
Straight
And
like that. Yep.
so,
And if you agree with us, if you have questions, comments, concerns about some of the shit that we talk about, feel free to drop a comment, send us an email, share some love, share our show with your friends, your family, and come back.
yeah, and thank you if you are a returning viewer, watcher, listener. We appreciate you. We love you. We send you love. And we hope that something today is going to lead you throughout the week that you can hold on to. So today's topic is what is.
Today we're go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Today we're talking about what it means to be healthy, right? And like what it means to be healthy as a woman, and particularly what it means to be healthy as a Black woman.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's such an important topic, especially right now, even outside. I mean, we can talk about COVID all day long. But these were bigger issues before we had COVID, right? What does it mean to be healthy? So that's one of the reasons why we're bringing it up today. And just as a disclaimer, this is not meant to be taken as health advice. We are not medical professionals. If something that we say, if something we say sounds like it'll be beneficial to you, then we say, hey, go for it. But please do not think that we are experts. We just are two gals that care about taking care of ourselves. um,
Sorry, Casanova having a blat in the background. Casanova's my dog, for that doesn't know, and he's having some fun around my feet. Just awkward. We're talking.
he wants to be part of the show, Syd.
He really is. It's not your time yet, but one day. Yeah, so let's get into this because come on, it's a really really important topic, right? That like who's
What do
making a
you
guess?
think it means to be healthy for you?
You know what? So when I think about like health, when I think about health and like when it pertains to like women, particularly, what I hope, like where I've gotten to so far is like paying attention to like emotional health as we pay attention to physical health, right? I think that's super important, especially because COVID right now or what have you, and like quarantine and things. But like for me, when we talk about health, especially when we're talking about like in the United States, I think a lot of times we go straight to like physical like appearance.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to pay attention to that emotional piece, um, as well as the physical piece, because nutrition and hydration and all that is super super important. Staying active, but so is like feeling good inside.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think for me, I spent a lot of time as a young adult. I mean, I'm still a young adult, but I spent a lot of time as a young adult thinking that what the scale said meant that I was going to be healthy or unhealthy. So we think about how society has told us that if you're 5'5", then you should weigh this much. And so for my entire life, I had always been considered obese, and I played sports, I was active and all kinds of things. But so at a young age, being told that, I had to condition myself out of thinking that regardless of what the scale says, that's not necessarily going to attribute to whether or not I'm healthy, right? And so I think that that in itself is a mental, health thing, not mental health as in like that's an issue, but like that in itself is a topic that comes up. Like, what do you think about when you're thinking about how you perceive yourself to be healthy? So in my mind, if I'm taking care of my mind and telling myself that, like, if I decide to binge eat a whole entire pack of cookies one day, that doesn't mean that I'm going to die of obesity the next day because I chose to make a decision of what I eat. And I think that it's so important to remember that being healthy is more than just a few bad things that you eat. It's more than just working out. It's more than just any one thing.
I agree. I think we live in like a society that like paints why, like, okay, let's talk about phobia, right? Like we live in a society like is scared of being like fat. I think it's important to remember like fat is different for everyone. Just like, like being, like you said, like on a doctor scale, obese, that's going to be different for everyone depending on like your height and things. But at the same time, for Black people specifically, we have to keep in mind that like a lot of those measurements and like those scales that they're using aren't even compatible to us. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not based on who we are. And so I think for Black women, again, like it's important for us, like it's such a mental battle, right? Like health has so much to do with like your mental health, I guess you could say, because of how it's thrown all the time. Like there's never a day that you can go through life without, if you're on like internet or watching TV, where you're not going to see something try to tell you how you should look in order to be healthy, right? And it's always connected to how you should look rather than how you should feel. So weird
Yeah,
to me. So unhealthy, because then you have these people who like feel that like, okay, since I'm thin, I'm healthy. And then like a lot of times that cannot be the case. You can still be thin and have health issues, right? Like just the same as you can be technically obese or fat but still be healthy. And so I think that it's
exactly.
super important to like pay attention to that, because society will have you out here thinking like you said, like, oh, I like I binged, like I ate a box of cookies, and like now I have to make sure that like I check my blood pressure every day. And it's like it's really about balance. Like
Yeah,
I did eat 7 Rice Krispie treats the other night, but I don't do that every night, right?
no shade.
And yeah, balance. Balance.
Yeah, and so I think that we also have other factors that society will tell us that we need to indulge in order to be healthy, right? So, for example, and this is something of personal experience, but Herbalife or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that was, I mean, people still do it. But that was a whole thing that was coming up, and people, tagging me in posts and like asking me if I have weight loss goals and all kinds of stuff. And I know nobody's doing it to be malicious, but how are people identifying somebody? You know what I mean? Are you and a lot of times I see it's centered around weight loss. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to lose weight? Well, try Herbalife. And that's fine if it works for you. But personally, I don't want to have to take supplements to lose weight. And I don't want to have to, change my eating habits completely as far as including a shake. I don't want to have to do all of that. And so me rejecting people to do that doesn't mean I think that their methods are bad, but just personally, I think weight loss and health needs to be looked at a more holistic way so that we can think about all that it takes to be healthy. And that's not even including just physical, because I'm sorry, that's including physical in a way that where does stress live in your body, right? And it resorts back to how you're feeling. So I know a lot of people keep stress in, well, as women, it's known because I taught. yoga or whatever. I'm certified. I don't teach, but women keep a lot of stress in their hips. And
Uh-huh.
so making sure you're stretching your hips, because you don't even, especially, and this, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but when it comes to like sexual trauma, you keep a lot of stress in your hips as well, because when you're having sex, like that's where a lot of it lays.
Yeah.
um and so those are things to consider. If you're not flexible, it's not necessarily geared towards your ability to stretch. It could be because of things that you need to work through also internally, but then also working stretching into those things that are targeted, because there are stretches that are proven to release stress. So that's something else I wanted to point out. Do you think that you have a healthy regimen for yourself?
I think that I am building a healthy regimen. I like, especially because of like the times in COVID, like things are like all changing. And so like our schedules are constantly changing. But I think that I have like a good foundation, right? Like I know that like I want to, and honestly, it's super helpful because of my Apple Watch. Like, but
Yeah.
like wanting to like stay active, right? Like just making sure like I meet like certain levels, like make like I do like we go on walks every day. So like that like I know I'm gonna get some sort of like outside time, right? I think I make it a point in like I guess one good thing I think I keep in my self-care like health regimen is like therapy. So I do therapy like what is it, once every 2 weeks.
Mm.
That's super helpful, and she also helps me keep on like things that I'm doing for myself, right? So I think just having little pockets, and like it doesn't have to be something that's on like consistent, but like just keeping in mind that like, hey, I haven't done anything for myself today. Let me do that. I think super self care is super super important to health. Um, so
Yeah.
I think I don't have like a great regimen, but I think I do a good job of keeping up with certain things that I sometimes lack, like keeping an eye on those things.
Do
That makes sense.
you do you use a journal, or they're all like mental notes?
You know, so I try to journal and I have a hard time with like staying consistent in a journal. Like I bought a like a 30-day gratitude journal and that was really cool doing that like in the morning and at night, but I definitely fell off. So I think for me, there's like several things. Like I have a journal that like I'll pop into sometimes, or sometimes I'll write a note. Uh, excuse me. Sometimes it's like just spending time by myself. I don't know, like it's just pockets of things that like I just keep trying because I don't think I've found something that like I'm consistently like do every day, part of like
Yeah.
health rather than like drink water.
One thing that I noticed when we came into quarantine that was something I was neglecting was eating breakfast. And I know that's something that's not abnormal, right? It's people don't eat breakfast. But for me, when I came into quarantine, one of the things that I started to do was I would just make myself breakfast in the morning. In the beginning, and now I make myself breakfast every single day almost if I have the stuff. But or I go and get breakfast and get what I want. Um, but that's been something that I felt like before I didn't feel was as important.
Hmm.
And I felt like it was something that, oh, I don't really need to eat breakfast. I've tried intermittent fasting and I can eat. And you know what I mean? I've tried those things and I've done intermittent fasting, not even on purpose. I
Yeah.
did it, just because those are the times that I would eat.
Hmm.
But I find that when I eat breakfast, I don't feel as tired throughout the day, depending on what I eat. If I just eat a granola bar, then that's nothing. But I usually eat some eggs or some avocado toast, and um I try to drink a glass of water before I drink coffee, which that's not necessarily always the case by any means. Um but that's something that I think that's why I'm not grateful to the COVID as far as like I think that there's a lot of health factors that could have been prevented and a lot of people could have not died. But I'm thankful for it slowing us down in the ways that we look at being healthy and healthy habits. And because for me, healthy is really what are your habits?
Mm,
Because you could work out every single day and eat right and all that kind of stuff, but you're drinking every weekend, you know? And if you're drinking every weekend, like from personal experience, I would have heart palpitations. I would drink Thursday through Sunday, sometimes Tuesday through Sunday. The year of my 20 when I was 25, um and I was working out, I was going to the gym, I was doing things, but like I would physically feel heart palpitations and I wasn't drinking enough water. And I was drinking coffee and I was doing all these things. And yeah, I may have had I mean, I think I looked good when I was 25. I mean, hey, I still do. But I it was something that it makes you open your eyes and think, okay, during COVID, I can't do like I'm probably never going to the gym again.
yeah.
I find comfort in working out at home now that I didn't do before. Before I would say, "Oh no, when I get home I'm just going to lay down and I'm just going to chill and all that." And now I work out whenever I feel like it. Most of the time it's right after work and it works. I'm sitting down at home working and then I'm like, "Okay, I've been sitting all day, so let me get up and work out." Um, and that's kind of been something that I've tried to build a habit around to kind of build a healthy regimen. Um, and I don't think I would have done that without having to stay home all the time and
Yeah.
think about the ways I'm spending my time.
Same. Yeah, I agree. I definitely work out more now than I did when I had my gym membership prior to COVID. So,
Right?
um,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I think my healthiest habit is that I drink water. Like
Mm,
I think I carry my cup, and I fill this probably up like 3 or 4 times a day, which probably isn't a whole lot, but I think my straws and my mason jar make me want to drink water way more. But that's probably my healthiest habit. Is like drinking water, and I'm very proud of that. And I think that also is something that like I just paid attention to since quarantine. It's like, dang, like I don't because like especially like we're gonna talk about health and we're gonna talk about like working and like being healthy like just to be real, like this whole like 9 to 5, like 5 days a week, like it's bullshit. If you're trying to be healthy and like adding that on top of like being a parent, like prior to
yeah.
COVID, my work schedule, I worked from 7 to 5:30, basically, right? But
Mhm.
my commute was also like at least 30 minutes, like one way. So like
Right.
on top of like having to drop off my kid at daycare if it was my day to drop her off, you know what I'm saying, on top of picking her up and then having to come home and make dinner and then like get her to sleep and want to like hang out with your spouse, like that's impossible, like so fucking
Yeah.
impossible. So, we actually when quarantine happened, we were so burnt out that we were like, okay, 2 weeks, right? Like 2 weeks are gonna be at home, just kind of like reset. And as like, everything got worse and quarantine has we're still here,
Yeah.
kind of like taking it upon ourselves to be like, okay, now that we have this time to kind of like make our own schedule, we need to create things that are a schedule that's healthy for us, right? And what does that look like? And the amount of time that cuts out from like just commuting alone has like given us so much time to be healthy. I think the average American, right, the average working, especially working millennial, we don't have the time prior to COVID to even create super healthy habits because of like the hustle, the grind, the this, the that, having to do this shit and like not even having the privilege to pay attention to ourselves.
Yeah. And I don't think we're taught that. I don't
No.
think that yeah, you have I don't even to be honest, I never really had a health class. Biology at Glendale was our health class. So, and I mean I love biology, but if we're being honest, we're not we adapted healthy the habits that we have from our parents, right? I think that I probably had a terrible work-life balance. I mean, I kind of still do because you live at work, right now. Um, but I don't remember a time where I didn't feel like I needed to work. Well, after I turned 18. When I was in high school, I kind of was more like, I can get a job, but I'd rather just be broke. You know what I mean? I'm okay. So once I turned 18, it was weird not like having money that I wanted, so once I started working, it was like nonstop. I remember my mom came to visit me once and she told me, "Well, when am I going to see you?" And I
Yeah.
said, "I don't know. Like I got to wake up at 6, go to work, then I have class until this time, then I
Girl,
have another job."
you used to be hella busy. I don't like talk about like college student grind. Like I remember coming over and seeing you in when you were working for Sodexo. Like
Yeah. That
I remember like yeah, like really or like the time like making time to like see each other and like go out. Like we would like pick you up from work and like damn
mm-hmm.
near get dressed in the car to like go out. That's how much you were grinding. It's like yeah, there's like no possible way that you could have been like developed super healthy habits in between having to do all that.
Right. And I don't think my parent like my mom and dad were always working, or I don't even like, what do they do? What do parents, when you're a kid, like, what do parents do for free time? To me, they were just always at work. So,
All,
like, we were latchkey kids. So, if they were at work, then we just wouldn't open the door, or sometimes we'd be able to go outside and we'd just have to call and check in, kind of thing, once we got older.
mm,
But it's amazing how much I can relate to my parents now that I'm an adult. And I'm sure like this isn't rocket science, right? Everybody has this realization. But now when I have kids, I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna probably ask me why I can't do something because I'm at work. Hopefully by that time I'll have a better work-life balance. But and I can relate to my kid if and when that ever happens, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'll explain to them, like, look, I'm gonna do it this time, but like I'm gonna develop healthy habits, so then I don't have to be that person that's always gone and working and all that. Because I mean, that's no shade to my parents. They did what they had to do, and that's okay. But for me as an adult, I'm like, damn, I definitely want to have a better work-life balance, because working to pay bills and not even like having you rest is just so exhausting. And I couldn't imagine having to be a parent and cook and do all those things at the same time. So shout out to parents who make time, because that shit, like being a parent in general, is like you're a fucking superhero, you know? So yeah.
I think me so when we first got pregnant, it was like I had to make like a conscious decision of like oh shit like okay so it was me getting pregnant and then also finding out I was having a girl. It was like okay,
Mm,
me as a black woman, as a mom, I have to do everything in my power to show her healthy habits that she can mimic, right? And so for me that of course first started with like work life balance, because at the time when I first got pregnant I was working like for an organization, well, the job position I had just wasn't really conducive to like my lifestyle at that time, right? So like
yeah.
I had to make this huge decision, ended up changing my job and getting a new job 6 months pregnant. Like that was like stressful, you know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah, I
in the
remember.
back of my mind, I just kept thinking like I have to make sure that she understands like her health comes first. Like I was working for an organization that wasn't putting my health first. So how am I as a mom gonna tell her, hey, put your health first when I'm not doing the same, right? So that's a huge thing, like that whole transition. And then even with COVID, again, a transition of like health, because now I'm in a position where like I'm essentially working for myself, right? And like that wasn't planned. And so now I'm like, okay, work life balance, what does that look like for myself? And I have the privilege to really cut up my time so that I can be healthy to the point where like I'm working, I'm spending time with my kid and my family, but I'm also spending time and taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Outside of just like the basic nutrition and hydration and exercise, you know what I'm saying? Like I have like real time to like be with myself. So yeah, I think becoming a parent really helped push me into like, okay, you have to be serious about your health habits because now you have someone watching you. a little
Yeah.
girl, a little Black girl at that, watching you. You know what I'm saying? And society already tells us like, oh, Black women, you got to be that strong Black woman. Y'all got to save everybody. My daughter ain't gonna be nobody else's superhero if she doesn't want to. You mean? So like, I'm
Right.
not going to instill to her that she has to go out and save the world, when in all honesty, the world ain't trying to save her. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like, save yourself first, and saving yourself, you're gonna help the communities that you want to help. But like, I'm
yeah.
always gonna teach her to put her health first, because like, ain't nobody else gonna do it for her. Well, I'm gonna put her, like, I'll put her health before my own, but like, essentially,
Yeah.
like, nobody else gonna do it for her. And so
Yeah,
I think,
and it's crazy because this should be in everybody's conversation right up there with credit and teaching us about all that kind of stuff, because I think that everybody wants to say, well, nobody taught me how to use credit, and I'm one of those people. Nobody taught me how, like, I had to learn, oh, you have to apply for an apartment and there's a deposit, and what about credit,
right,
and like you have to pay all your bills on time. You know what I mean? Like those are things that as Black people we're not necessarily taught. We have to learn the hard way. So instead of starting off
right,
with 500 credit and then building, we start off with 500 credit and then going down
right.
and then
It goes
having to
back.
go back up, which is the going up is such a harder, you know, uphill battle than I think that anybody anticipates. And instead of, you know, our schools and whatever teaching us that, we we don't, and so we have to learn the hard way. And I think health is and self-care is right up there with that conversation, because it's so easy to neglect, as we've mentioned. It's so easy, and nobody does it on purpose. You know, you look down and you're like, holy shit, 7 hours have gone by.
Right.
You know
And
what
I
I mean?
haven't
Like,
eaten,
just
I haven't drank any water. Didn't eat. I didn't snack.
right.
I've been working. That's scary. And that used to be me. That's so scary.
I mean, I still kind of do it. I work through my lunch and I'm like, oh dang, it's 2 o'clock, I should probably eat. And a lot of times it's because I don't feel like cooking. I'm terrible. I got, you know, quarantine, I was cooking almost every damn day. And me and Kendall had to have a conversation, my partner Kendall, because it was like, bro, I I can't do this. I'm not set up to I'm not meant to be a stay-at-home mom and cook all the time and just have everything for you ready and be able to take care of. We don't have a child, for one. Gwen, our dog, does not count. So we had to have a conversation about who's gonna cook. And if I don't feel like cooking, we're not gonna eat some bullshit. Because if I don't cook, then we gonna eat chicken nuggets. And once in a while, I'm okay. I'm not too good for some chicken nuggets,
Right.
but I'm not eating chicken nuggets for 3 days a week because I don't feel like cooking those 3 days. Like, no, we need to compromise here. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the big reasons why. And I feel even in a quote unquote regular world where we are on, you know, busy and working and doing all these things, cooking is just not a priority for a lot of people, even including myself. I don't think that, like, if I honestly don't want to spend my Sunday meal prepping, because meal prepping takes a lot of time and I don't want to do it. So
Mhm.
then I have to think, okay, what can I cook in bulk that'll last me at least 3 days? You know, because 3 days is my max for leftovers. I
Yeah.
don't know if I can eat it every single day for that week. So, you know, having to stop and plan and then do all of that, it's so much. So, anyways, that's all that to say, um eating healthy and cooking and all that and self-care is something that I think and I hope that quarantine has been able to help everyone kind of establish, even if it's just one thing. I think self-care doesn't have to be a whole regimen, right? It could be one simple thing. Like, I put my phone down, not me, but this is an example. Like, I put my phone on a desk somewhere away from my bed before I go to bed at night, because I don't
Mhm.
want to wake up and look at it. You know what I mean? That's a step towards a healthy habit. You know, then you're not waking up and looking at it and whatever. So I think, if anything, the challenge is I challenge everybody to pick one thing that you're not doing. And if you're already doing one thing, maybe challenge yourself to do two things. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, if you're drinking water every day, maybe instead of drinking, you know, 3 to 4 times, Sid, no, not pinpointing you, but like maybe you drink double that. You know what I mean? Because you really can't have too much water ever. So, do you think that while we're working through quarantine and healthy habits and things like that, do you think that you have anything specific as far as insecurities that you're trying to combat during these times? Because as we mentioned, health is not just physical, it's mental. So when it comes to mental health, I feel like a lot of times for me, insecurities plays a big factor in whatever habits I have. Do you have
Yeah.
any that you're trying to combat or overcome in regards to your health currently?
Yeah. So, all right, here we go, right? So, I think something that like I am actively trying to work through still, like with quarantine, right, is like my insecurities and my feelings around weddings. Because
Mm.
so if you know me, you know that Mo and I, my honey, my little dip, we were supposed to get married in April. And so like COVID happened and quarantine hit like 2 weeks before my bachelorette party and my birthday and literally like a month before our wedding. So like all of that kind of just like went downhill, you know, and like of course for us like we went into like straight parent mode of like we need to stay healthy and alive because we have a kid that like is going to depend on us, right? And so
Yeah.
like our first thought was like, yeah, like cancel it, like we're not even worried about that.
Yeah.
But like it just sucks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Essentially, like I'm very excited. You know, I'm planning a wedding. Like, I also have like friends that are also getting married around the same time, and like, you know, we were planning trips. We were still trying to
We were still
we were
trying to go to
still trying to
Vegas.
make this bachelorette party happen. You know what I'm saying? So like, I felt like it was very responsible for us to be like, okay, you know, let's not talk about it no more. Like, we're just gonna like for us, it's like we're gonna do it when we can do it the right way with our families, with everybody we want there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have these insecurities because I see people still like getting married, and I think that's great. And I think like if you have the opportunity to do it how you want to, like please, yeah, don't do it. But then I start thinking like, are we not doing it? Like, is there something wrong with us that we're not like super trying to like do this right now? Like, does
Mm,
it look weird? Like, are people thinking a certain thing about us because we're not trying to like rush the altar? Because we've had people call us and be like, so you guys gonna go to the courthouse and like you guys just gonna like tie the knot just so like and then like get married later and like do the wedding later but get married now? Like we thought about that too, but then it was like, why?
at
Like
that
I mean,
point,
at the end of
yeah.
the day, it was just like, why? Like why even do all like why just not just wait to do it all at one time? Because like for us, it's like wesh. Like essentially, like you know, there's like benefits to being married and things like that on paper, right? But essentially, we're already reaping those benefits. Like Mo and I have like I've been on Mo's health insurance since before Mina was pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that was the biggest thing for us. Like, to get some good health insurance, and that I mean, we're talking about health. That's super important. So like, I just had some insecurities around like what people I guess thought we think marriage is, and like what people thought about like our ideas about a wedding, and like low key on what I was wondering, like if people were like, oh, like maybe they're not even going to get married because like if they really wanted to get married, they would already done it.
Mm,
And it's like, so there's like it's like so much like mental like so like even early in quarantine like I was still kind of wedding planning, and then like I'd go through these like super emotional days where I was like I don't want anything to do with it. Like I even went to like was in a space where like I couldn't talk to my other friends that were getting married, and that really sucked because I don't ever want it to come across as like I'm not excited for them, because I'm super excited. Like I want to hear everybody else's plans, but at the same time like I have to make sure that I give myself space to feel the emotions on the other side of like, damn, like I'm not planning my wedding
yeah.
time. So that's been my like biggest like insecurity, mental health kind of battle that I've been having in relation to I guess like quarantine. The biggest one I can think of, because like I'm still actively like working through that.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, you know how I feel about that. I I was still I was gonna come still, and I was like, I'll just marry you guys by myself. You know what I mean? But of course, nobody would have that. I could just hear your mom being like, "Who
Girl.
does Ariana think she is?"
Mhm.
Um. So of course we will be ready for it, and I think also I felt a lot of There's that term fear of missing out, and I don't necessarily think that that was it. It's kind of just like wished I could have indulged and had those memories already. You know what I mean? Like then we could be talking about, oh my gosh, do you remember when
Yeah.
so and so did this or whatever? Oh, I caught the bouquet. I mean, I caught a bouquet already, but I can collect more. Shout out to Desiree. Uh and so I think it's very valid to feel those things, especially when that you weren't having a huge wedding
Yeah.
and it was very doable. Like we could have did it because I mean, you guys were already limiting the amount of people who were coming anyways because of the space. Because we could have technically did it because they were allowing that many people, but it
Mhm.
just didn't make sense because then we would have put everybody at risk and all of
Yeah.
those things because we had to all
Especially
get on
because like
planes.
I think the biggest thing was that like so many of y'all are coming from Arizona, and that was the
Mhm.
biggest factor. Like we cannot, like Mo and I were like, we cannot in good conscience ask the people that we care about to get on a plane and fly across the country just to watch us get married right now. Like it's not that
Even though
deep.
we would have, but
Yeah, like y'all definitely would have. Which is a problem. Like we talked about that too. We're like, we really have to tell these people, like, y'all, like, we're not, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But like, and that hurts too because I think there's so many people that like have so many emotions attached to this, right? And like, even like, especially for like my family, like on top of like them being able to come out here and watch us get married, they only see us every so often. You know what I'm saying? Like my
Right.
siblings have only met Amina once. She's a year, almost, she's a year and a half almost. So like,
Yeah.
you know, whenever it's a time for us to get together, it already takes so much planning that like the excitement builds up, and so there's a ton of emotions on the other side when it doesn't go through. Um,
Yeah, and I was so excited to because we have a friend group and it's me, Sydney, and our friend Desiree. And we haven't all three gone anywhere together in a very, very long time.
oh my
Like
god.
since we were in college. And
Oh my
so or maybe a little bit after that. But anyways, the point is I was so excited to be with my girls, and go out and so then I was like, okay, we won't do the bachelorette party, but at least we'll all be able to go to the wedding. And then, quarantine just kept getting pushed out farther and farther. And I was supposed to go on a trip every month, not
yeah.
even like personally related, but for work too. I was supposed to go on a trip every month from January to May.
Hmm.
So it was very much disheartening. And um I wanted to, like, I would, at one point I was like, oh, I'll still go, but I know, like, as I started learning and being more cognizant of whatever, of course I didn't want to put anybody at risk and do those things. But yeah, I feel like that's one of the big things that, like, mental health has been something that in the beginning I was definitely struggling with because I'm definitely a conscious person of my surroundings and I want to make the world a better place. But I'm also, like, at times, like everybody, selfish. I want to be able to have fun. I want to be able to go and do the things. I don't want to have to, worry about, because I'm already kind of a germaphobe. And so, like, when I go places,
Kinda,
I'm like,
kinda. Okay. All right.
anyways, I don't want to have to go to places and worry about, like, oh my gosh, did they clean this? Did they clean this cup? What about these utensils? All these things that just already drive me crazy. Like before pandemic, I was worried about using a spoon or a fork that had a watermark on it,
Yes.
even though I knew it was probably clean. But that's the kind of level of, like, so now I'm like trying to be we're slowly going places every now and then, like maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks, we're going out in public and, like, maybe going to eat. Um, but yeah, I also would say, as far as one of the securities that I am currently working through is um back to what we're talking about, how we look, not we, how I look um physically, because in the beginning of quarantine, I was lazy, not lazy, because that's subjective to whatever somebody else thinks. But I was just not doing anything. I was binge watching shows. I was eating whatever I wanted. We were ordering
We were
DoorDash.
playing Sims.
We were playing
Oh
Sims
my
so
God.
much. So much. We would call each other, drink and eat and play Sims for hours. Um, all these things. So slowly I started to see myself gain weight.
Mhm.
And so then I started to work out again after I was not even because of what I was looking like. I was feeling like we were ordering DoorDash so much that I think Kendall got some sort of pass to get stuff cheaper, you know, the Dash Pass or whatever, because that's how often we were ordering and it just made sense. So we're 2 months in and I tell him, look, dude, we can't do this. This is not a sustainable way of living. We cannot eat Wingstop every Friday. You know what I mean? Because
Sound
that's
good.
my shit. Um, so slowly we started to pull back from DoorDash and more so me cooking again. And then I started working out and doing this step class. Shout out to Hip Hop with Phil or Extreme Hip Hop with Phil. If you like step, his classes are like unmatched. Um, and so those are things that, and then, you know, you're looking at Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all these things, you're inundated with what other people are doing and looking like. And so it's hard not to compare yourself. You know what I mean? It's hard not to be like, oh, well, I see that this person is doing amazing at home workouts and eating and right and doing all these things that I should be doing, but I
Mhm.
just don't feel like it. You know what I mean? And then so then I talk down to myself, oh, that's something that I have almost overcome completely. Cause I don't know if you remember, but I was always that person to like talk down to myself or
Mhm.
I would easily call myself stupid or easily just get to myself and say, wow, you could have just done this differently. And then I like fixate on it. And so
Mhm.
in quarantine, that was something that was heavily on my mind because I would be like, well, damn, I can't see this person, but they're not even talking to me anymore. Or, you know, just those little things. And then saying to myself, like, it's me, I'm the reason, and just things that really don't matter and making a bigger deal in my head. And so I started telling myself no, like I would just reject all those thoughts. And so now I'll say like, wow, that's really stupid of me. But that's not something that I sit on and like feel the emotions that come with those thoughts because I could feel one way and that's perfectly fine. And if I'm validating myself, that's okay. But then, like, I would be to the point of telling myself, wow, you're really stupid for doing that. I can't believe you didn't handle that situation better. And then make myself feel, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Shitty. So that's something that I've definitely come, not completely, because that's always a continuous thing, but I've tried to overcome that because I I one thing that I've always tried to tell my friends is don't talk to my friend like that, right? If you're telling me something negative about yourself, don't talk to yourself like that. If you wouldn't let somebody else talk to you like that, then why are you talking to yourself like that? And of course, who takes their own advice?
Right.
So that's something that I tried to start doing more often and really just being able to be positive inside and out, not just what I'm telling people.
Mhm.
Do
Mo calls
you?
it. I think Mo. I don't know where he got it from, but he calls them ants, automatic negative thoughts, and he's always like, "You got to
Mm.
smash your ants, like stomp on your ants."
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Right? I know. That man is brilliant. I don't know where he got it from. Um,
That's
but I wanted
dope.
to. I know that you talked about like social media and like body image, and like I think that's such a big topic, and like especially like when you talk about like social media and like body dysmorphia, like trying to figure out like what do you really look like? Have you
Yeah.
have you thought about that lately? Like what? Because of course, like everyone looks. You know what I'm saying? Like you see differently from other people. So like what you see in the mirror might not see be what other people see, but like what you see in the mirror is definitely influenced by like you said, like you scroll through social media and you see all these bodies and these people and these lifestyles, you know, all this happiness, And so like you try to figure out like, well, why don't I look like that? Like, you know what I'm saying? I think the scariest thing, and we talked about this the other day, is Snapchat filters.
Yeah.
Like Snapchat filters, specifically Snapchat filters, because I feel like, well, like you said it, right? Like you were talking about how when you open Snapchat and it's not with a filter, the way that the camera makes
It's
you look, it's
terrible. I look
awful.
sick. And I don't
It's
know, maybe
so
I do look sick.
bad.
Let me, y'all drop a comment below. Let me know if I look sick. But in Snapchat, I look horrible.
With no filter, yeah, I don't like, and it's so crazy. Like I will open my Snapchat camera with no filter and then open my normal camera with no filter, and it's
Yeah.
different. So like when I open Snapchat, it's like you're automatically wanting to put on a filter because you know you're gonna look busted. Like, let me go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
put the Snapchat filter on. But it's like, well, why the hell am I even using Snapchat? Like it's a mind. It really is, and it's so scary. And like, like they're cute and they're fun, and like the ears and things like that. And I still use them, but like, it took me a while. Like I had to like stop for a while. Like I had to like
Yeah.
remind myself that like you don't have to put a filter on this picture because like one,
Yeah.
you don't look like that. You don't got them ears and that little nose in real life, Sydney. Like you have to like step outside and like understand that like it's okay not to look like that because normal people don't look like that. Like
Right. We
you
don't.
look the way you're supposed to look. And I feel like sometimes society and Snapchat filters and social media make you feel like the things that the way you look are imperfections. And it's like those aren't imperfections. That's what you look like. That's you.
Right. Right. Your ears look like that for a reason. You know what I mean? Like those, you, and we've talked about this before too, about how much it took to make us, right? The amount of things that had to line up to be who we are. That's even outside of this is biology, right? Like
Right.
what it takes to make a human is
Yeah.
not as easy as everybody on TV makes it seem, right? And there are some TV shows who actually portray it in a realistic manner. But like once you get of a certain age, you know, just having sex when you're not ovulating, you don't produce a baby. And even when you are ovulating, shit, you have a very small window in your ovulation cycle that you're actually going to like try, potentially, that's even
Yeah.
potentially conceive. And so it's just amazing how it's easily to forget that like we aren't just thrown, and God or whoever you believe in did not just look at a dartboard and throw it and then like shit, well I guess that's gonna be Sydney and that's gonna be Ari.
Right.
Like that's not how it works. And so I think it's so important to just remind yourself that regardless of our Snapchat filters and Instagram filters and whatever filter that you decide to use, those things were added because more people were using them. And the more
Right.
people that were using them, the more it became the norm. But that's not the norm. Like I don't have eyeliner every day, all day. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
most filters are made for females. If you think about it, most filters are made for women. And if if I'm looking at a bunch of women and they all have different filters, but I don't ever know because they're also made to look like you're not having a filter, right? Because there was that whole era, like not whole era, but like that whole point in time where using a filter was something that was like, oh my gosh, you used a filter on this or whatever.
Right.
And now, so they've taken a step back to making it look like you're not using a filter. And so now it's hard to tell who looks like what. And it's okay to look whatever you want to look like. If you love filters and that's how you like to look, perfectly fine. But if you just don't let the filters tell you that you have to look like the filters.
Yep.
They are put in place to create a image of um whatever everybody, because it's best basically algorithm. So I can create a filter on Snapchat, right? We created one for your birthday,
Mm.
and it wasn't anything that was like facial or anything. It just had happy birthday Sydney on it. And if we really wanted to, we could go back and look at analytics of how many people used that filter that night because we had it in a geographic setting. So
Mhm.
whoever was at the club that night, if they had Snapchat open, they could potentially see our filter that we made. And it's really that simple. People who use filters as far as like a business, and even on nowadays, I guess you can create your own, but the more people who use them, the more likely they're going to show them to other people. So it's all about, again, like influence and liking and all those kinds of things that aren't realistic to real life. So that was a long tangent, but I'm really passionate about these filters, apparently.
Yeah. I want to, so you touched a little bit about like ovulation and like sexual health and things like that, and how like it takes a lot to create a tiny human and to like bring life into the world. And like I think when we talk about health, it's super important, especially for me, because I'm about to get on a soapbox. We talk about health for Black women, that we talk about birth control and how it's used in society, right? Because I have a lot of feelings about birth control, and like this comes from a person that like has used birth control before, and also like a person who is a birth worker, right, and who works with
Yeah.
birthing people and things. And like I just I don't like birth control. I think that like it's a tool that has been used. I mean, historically for us, right? Like medicine in general with Black people, there's the nasty history with it in the United States, right? And so
Right.
like we know birth control has been used as like a sterilization method for Black women, right? And so, or for Black birthing people. So I think that history still definitely trickles down into today's society and like how they look at birth control, especially how like I see a lot that it's painted, especially in Black communities, they paint birth control as like a savior for like period pains and like menstrual, like that's bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, like it's just bullshit, and I don't think it. I think it's very irresponsible to paint it that way, because like
Yeah.
if we're saying this is for birth control, then this is for birth control. But like now y'all are trying to make it seem like this is going to save someone from like menstrual pain or like menstrual health, when like what the body's doing, that's something the body needs to do. And like there's ways that we can support it to like maybe like you don't cramp as bad and things like that. But like birth control ain't the answer. To fill this person up with all these like you know medicines and things, like I just don't think that's the answer. And I think it's like highly irresponsible to paint it as just like this like tool to use if you're having bad periods. Oh yeah, just go on birth control, because you're not telling them the real like background behind it and like risk factors and things. And like birth control is really dangerous for some people, and it
Yeah.
also don't work the same for everybody. So like I like it
And
grinds my fucking gears to like see like medical professionals and just people in general speak to birth control as if it's like, when especially specifically when they speak to it about saving people from their menstrual cycles or from their periods, right?
and they
Like we
don't
know, like
ever.
you said, like if you track your ovulation, if you track your cycle and you know more about your body, you won't need those things, because literally you could do it yourself. There's not, and like someone was talking about the other day specifically about like birth control pills. Some a
Mhm.
doula was talking about it on Twitter, and she was like, they give you all these pills for all these days, on days that like you're not even, you might even be able to get, like, why are you even taking this? And then like, so I don't know. I have I don't want to take up
And
too
I
much
think
time.
another thing that is, for me personally, why I opt not to use it. I was on the pill at one point. I had the implant at one point, the one that goes in your arm, and they never stop to ask you about your mental health. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I don't know if there's any hard science with it, but when I had the implant in my arm, I felt like a completely different person.
Yeah.
I was always on edge. I felt like I was bipolar.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And so I made the decision to take it out, and like we'll use other contraceptives, because it's just not, it doesn't make, it's not worth the risk. I would rather have a baby than feel like that. You know what I mean? And like we mentioned, it's not that easy to just have a baby. And so I think um for me, I was like, yeah, this is not working. It's not working for me. And nor did any of my doctors ever stop to ask me if I had anxiety. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or if I had issues, or not issues, if I had episodes of depression or anything like that. Nobody ever stops to ask you those things. Or do they ever tell you that there's those side effects? They tell you, oh yeah, there's little side effects, whatever. But they don't ever really give you any like concrete detail of
Yeah.
what the side effects are. You have to learn it again the hard way. And it's
And
just
also
something
don't
that,
check in with you about the side effects. It's not like your
right,
doctor will call you a month later and be like, hey, I know I put this insert in your arm. How are you feeling?
right. And it's crazy because people say, like, I'll say one last thing about the implant, but specific to the implant in your arm, it's been said that the first 6 months are like when you potentially could have those kind of episodes and whatever. But I had mine and it was 2 years in. And the last year is when I started feeling like I was just always on edge and always like about to fucking lose my mind. And it was just something that I had no, and at the time I couldn't remember anything that was super, you know, emotional. And so it
Yeah.
was the decision to, take it out and whatever. And I can't say that I can't say exactly that it was instant that I felt better, but gradually I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not an insane person."
Right.
Because anybody who was dealing with me on an emotional level may have considered that I was emotionally unstable. And so that's what my testimony is
Yeah.
about birth control, because it's just not something that sat well with me. Um in regards to birth control, let's switch it a little bit over to fertility. We had mentioned,
Yeah.
and our cause for this month is drum
Yeah.
roll.
So October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And so we know that there are many causes that can lead to pregnancy and infant loss, one being infertility, right? So we know that in the United States, 1 in every 4 pregnancies ends in infant loss. So, like, I mean, like, count on your fingers how many people you right that have children, and understand that, like, this isn't something that's like very outside of like our community. Like, people are battling with losses all around you. So I think that just this month, it's really important to kind of pay attention to that, and also think of ways that like you can be a support person to people who have experienced loss, or to yourself if you have experienced loss, right? Um, so I think a few things that I want to share, or tips that I want to share when speaking with people who have experienced loss, whether it be miscarriage or stillborn or infancy loss, right? Is to acknowledge it first, because these are people, these are beings that we've lost, and so it's really important to just acknowledge that and not act like it didn't happen. Um, Tangible ways that you can be supportive to people that have gone through loss is call them, talk to them, like, be a listener. Sometimes people just want to talk. You can also like run errands for them if they got other shit that they need to be doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, loss and things like that, unfortunately, don't stop life. And so it could be really supportive if you can help them on that end while they're, you know, dealing
Right.
with their emotions and things. Um, Helping out with other kids if they have other kids in the house. One thing I do want to point out, just while we're talking about like fertility and infertility and having babies and things, like, y'all, please stop asking people when they're gonna have babies. Like, it's so inconsiderate. Like, it's inconsiderate, and I know, like, it doesn't feel like it's inconsiderate, but you don't know what people have been through. You know what I'm saying? Like, one in
Right.
4 pregnancies, like, you don't know if you're talking to someone who is trying their like every day, like checking their ovulation and going through IVF or doing all these things to pregnant. And so it's smart to be conscious of like how we present things. And like, you might be like, oh yeah, my friend just got married. In your mind, the next thing is babies, but that might not be also what people want to do. Not everybody
Right.
want to have babies anyway. So I think it's really important to like not ask people when they want to have kids, but then also if someone has experienced a loss, to not ask them when they want to have their next, and not as like the
Yeah.
next kid is going to save them or help them or fix it, right? Because that child is still gone. Nothing is
Yeah.
going to change that, and we're going to acknowledge that. And not to say that like another child cannot bring joy, but it's not going to take away or the grief that's happening from that loss, right? And so, and then in respect to grief, is like it's not linear. Give people time. Do not, I swear, do not tell somebody that it'll get better with time, because you don't know that, and you make false
Right.
promises. And it shouldn't have to get better with time. It should feel better than when they want it to feel better. And it might not ever feel as good as it used to be, right? Like life might not ever feel as good, but like give people the time and space that they need to feel what they want, and like
Yeah.
try not to interject. So that's what I want to say about that. You can always learn more information about like pregnancy and infant loss from the CDC, from the NIH, and from March of Dimes. They always have like good information on their website. If you want to hear more about like fertility, it's specifically with like Black birthing people. The National Black Doula Association is hosting a Facebook Live event on October 23rd at 7 p.m. It is going to be hosted by one of my favorite doulas slash social workers, my doula sister Imani, the Soul Doula. So October 23rd, 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. Facebook Live for the National Black Doula Association. The event is called Healing the Black Womb. And so she's going to be talking a lot about like fertility, reproductive health, and fertility, and specific to Black birthing folks. So,
Yeah. That's Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time, yes, ma'am.
Awesome. That's exciting. I also think that I'm going to tune in also because another thing that our system fails us is teaching us about fertility.
Yeah.
And, it's something that I'll say one last thing is I know so many women who are in our age bracket who we've at one point, if I'm friendly enough with them, we've had a conversation about how can we get pregnant? Like,
Right.
you don't know until you actually, try. And so we're kind of at that age where we're having conversations about like, well, what happens if we get pregnant? What happens, I myself am afraid, like if I did get pregnant, like how will I handle if I do lose the baby? Those kinds of things. So I definitely be tuning in because even just to know, the more knowledge you have and equip yourself with, I feel like the more prepared you are to handle whatever comes your way. So October 23rd, we'll be tuning in over here at the we're not married, but at the Arianna residence. um so to end our session, and also, oh, one last thing that you didn't mention is if you are curious and would like to have information about maybe you are pregnant or maybe you are trying to conceive and you want a little bit more support in your life, Sydney is a doula and she's amazing. She'll be my doula at some point in my life. And I think that if you have these questions about what's going to happen when okay, what's next after you conceive or what's next, she's definitely an expert in it. She's been doing the work. She's doing amazing things. So if you would like her support, reach out. Her Facebook page is From Syd with Love. She has a website from sydwithlove.com and she's easy to reach, easy to talk to. As you can tell, we've sat on here for almost an hour. So please do that. And if Sydney is not in the area that you need support in, she does know she is in the National Doula Association, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I am. So I'm an ambassador for the National Black Doula Association. So as I do provide virtual birth support and virtual doula support, but if you're looking for someone specific in your area, I can always reach out to my network and connect you to someone. So Instagram and Facebook at From Syd with Love. On my Instagram, I do have more information about how to support people who've gone through pregnancy and infant loss, and like shit not to say and shit to say, like real
Yeah.
detailed shit. Like, so go and check that out. And then, yeah, of course, you can always reach me at my website at doulasyd.com.
But also, don't reach out to her if you don't plan to do research about your area. If you are in her area, that's great. But if you're not in her area, please don't make her do the research for you. I'm just gonna throw that out there. She's a nice person and she probably will, but I would empower you to go and be an advocate for yourself, because if you're in Alaska, I'm sure there may be one there or whatever.
You can
Anyways,
always go to blackdoulas.org. That's the National
oh,
Black Doula
okay.
Association website. And they have a directory. So we're all listed in there. There are a couple more directories. Systemmidwife.com is another Black doula directory, and it has doulas, I want to say, and midwives, and it might have childbirth educators. So yeah, and Facebook groups, y'all. Facebook groups are key. If you're someone who's pregnant, and like when it comes to doula work as well, and you'll learn if you attend the Facebook Live event, because Imani is actually like a holistic infertility doula. So there are different sorts of doulas. If you're someone who is looking to get pregnant and you're having issues with fertility and things, there are doulas who work with you to get to that point of pregnancy. So yes, yes to doulas, yes to extra support in getting pregnant, yes to babies.
Yes, babies. I love looking at them. um, to finish us off, we have our fishbowl. And if you're new and you didn't listen last episode, that is okay. Our fishbowl, we both have a fishbowl. We write topics or questions or quotes. We put them in there. We're going to decorate them at some point, so they won't be plain. But anyways, I'm going to pull from mine this week since Sydney did hers last week. And let's see what we get. Sorry if you hear the paper. It's kind of obnoxious, but all right. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to pick a different one. Okay. Here is a quote. It's not about perfect, it's about effort. And when you implement that effort into your life every single day, that's where transformation happens. That's how change occurs. Keep going and remember why you started. That
That
is
is
so
perfect.
fitting.
That
Yes.
was so perfect.
I love that. And I'll include it. We'll include it in the Facebook post so that if people want to remember it or whatever. Um, and any last thoughts, Sydney, before we close out?
No, I think watch this video and then you decide to share your healthy habits, of course, like share them in the comments section, or like if you have any questions about fertility, or like you want to continue the conversation about body dysmorphia or health in general, shoot us a comment or an email and let's keep the conversation going.
Yes. And once again, this is our second episode of the Ari and Syd Show, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.